Hello and welcome to the 10th video in the PHP e-commerce series. We are building Shanta's Boutique and we're working on the back end, and here we are on our site and, well, oops, it's broke. So if you've been following along in these video series and you realize when you left the page we were working on yesterday and try to go back to the front end of the site that it is broke. That's because I've made some silly mistakes with the path of our root directories and even our JavaScript. And I've intentionally left these mistakes in the project or in the tutorial videos because I feel like mistakes are going to happen in projects, and a lot of times that gets edited out of videos and people don't actually see how to diagnose and fix some of the some of the mistakes. So that's part of learning. But you can see here that this we got a warning for this require once did not work, and tells us in core init on line 7 it's not working right here. And let's take a look at that real quick. So if we go to our init.php, you can see that right here on this require once I used a relative path instead of an absolute path. And the problem with that is it worked perfectly on the page that we were on because we were in the admin area, so it backed up and got to our config file. But when we're on the front end, when we're on the front end of the site, we're not inside this admin folder. In fact, we are in the same directory structure, and so that's where we're at relative to our config file is going to change depending upon where we are on the site. So we need to have that as an absolute. Okay, so to take care of that, let's just get rid of the // and we're going to leave the config.php part, but in front of this we need to make use of our server array. Okay, and then we're going to use the key of document_root, and we'll put a period after this to concatenate on config. So let's take a look now at what happens. Okay, so now we have our htdocs, but we don't have the rest of the structure. So what we have to do is right here, this actually needs to be / the name of your project, and then / config.php. And what that's going to do is give us our absolute path. Now the site appears to be working. We do have one more path issue, and if you scroll down and we hit our buttons to open up our details modal that we had working before, it's not working. And that's also a path issue, and let's go ahead and take a look at that. And that was in our includes footer PHP has the JavaScript for opening the modals. So if we look at the details modal right here, we have the function and we have our Ajax call. And if you look at the Ajax call, I have this PHP echoing out base URL, and then we have includes. The problem with this is JavaScript and Ajax happens on the client side of so their root directory is not the same as what's going on. That PHP it can go back to the root of the server. Okay, that's base URL. So what we need to do is just completely get rid of that PHP, and we'll get rid of the concatenation there. And inside of our path here, we just need to give it a / then the name of your app, and then / includes, and save that out. And so this is actually, from the client's perspective, this is the root. The / right here is the root of the project. So then we just / tutorial, and then we go to our includes. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Now when we click, that's working. And let's check our admin area. So we'll do / admin. It seems to be working. We'll click on brands. Alright, so now we can type in, yep, so everything is still working on our brands, but now the front end of our site's working. So that was just a little bit of cleanup or housekeeping that we had to do to make sure that the site's going to work going forward. So I just wanted to kind of clear that up. And this video is going to be fairly short, fairly easy. All we're going to do is finish up our delete and edit functions for these brands. As you know, we can already add a brand from the last video, and we took care of a little bit of security. There are still other security things that we have to keep in mind, like cross-site request forgery, and you can usually take care of that by adding a token to the page and basically setting a session with that token name and checking that against the posted value, so you could tell if that there's a session set for that hash, because you would use some sort of random hash, so it's not easy to guess. Maybe we'll get to that in a later video, but I just want you to know that, I mean, we're still learning this project, so it's not 100% ready for production or to use in the real world. I encourage you to keep learning about security issues, and if I get enough comments or something about, hey, we really want to see that cross-site request forgery used, maybe we'll add that in a later video. Okay, so let's just get cracking on this. Go back. We won't need our footers page anymore. Let's see. Excuse me, I do have a cold. Okay, so on our brands page, brands.php, we're back here, and we're gonna go ahead and take out of the delete first. It's the easiest, but all we have to do is up here underneath our errors array, give ourselves a few lines here. I'm gonna put a comment, and we'll just say delete brand. Now this is fairly easy, because if you look at the front of the site, what we have here for the delete, if I hover over, you can see it's a link in the bottom left hand side that it is posting it back to the same page. It's just a link back to the same page, but it has get variable of delete, and then it's equal to the ID of the brand. Okay, so all we have to do is we need to do an if statement here, and let's go ahead and get my skeleton of the if statement, and we need to check two things. One, we need to check if the get variable is set, okay, and we're going to check if it's not empty. Okay, so what I want to do here and here is the same exact thing, so I'll just go ahead and control click in there so that I can type at the same spot. We're checking for $_get to check our get variable, and what we're going to do is we're going to check if delete. So is the get variable delete set? Is it there, and also is it not empty? Okay, so if that's true, then that means that's in the URL is the question mark delete equals and then the ID. So one thing we want to do is grab the ID first. So I'm just going to say delete ID is equal to $_get delete. Okay, and what we can do is we can cast that as an integer, just to give it a little bit, make sure that what they're passing there is a integer. And if we wanted to go one step further, we could make use of our sanitize function. So we say sanitize, let me spell that correctly, sanitize, man, I can't type this morning, and then we could just pass it the delete ID. Okay, so then what we could do, just to make sure it's working, we could just echo delete ID, save that, go back to our page here, we'll refresh the page, and now I'll just click on one of these. This should echo 7 at the top of the page if this works. Okay, here's another error that I'm going to leave in here, but undefined variable delete, you probably saw this when I was typing it. I do have a typo here, and I spelled delete ID wrong on the echo. So let's go ahead and refresh the page, Alright, so now I clicked here and it's just echoing 7, which is my ID. So that's exactly what we want. So that's working. Now we can get rid of this echo statement and we can begin to build our statement up. So we'll just say SQL, which is going to be our SQL statement. I like to put my semicolons on because I forget those often, and so I do them before I start typing. So select, we're going to delete from brand, and then if we just delete from brand right now, that will delete everything from our table. So we have to give it a condition. So we're going to say where, and then ID equals, and then in single quotes, we're going to put delete ID. So what's going to happen is it's going to delete the row in the table brand, or as many rows as there are actually, with the ID that's equal to our delete ID. So it'll go through and delete. If we clicked on Skechers, it would delete that row with the ID of number 7. Okay. So then what we can do is we'll just make use of our DB object and our query method, and we're just going to pass in that SQL. Okay. Now the very last line of code that we need to make this work is we need to redirect back to the page without the delete on there. So we're going to make use of the header PHP function. And inside of single quotes, we're going to capital L location colon space and then just brands.php. Okay? And that will redirect us back to the brands page without the variable. So if I go here and refresh, and if all goes well, if I click this right here, it should redirect to the page with the delete equals, delete it from the database, and then redirect us back here. It's going to all happen pretty quickly, so just watch. That was it. It redirected twice, and now you can see that that is gone, but let's check our brand table and make sure it's gone. So it is indeed gone, and now we can go back and we can add that back in if we wanted. So Skechers, and it's back, and I can delete Polo, add Polo back, and it's back. So that's it for deleting. It's just that simple. Very simple idea there. Just using the get variable to delete those. The next thing we want to do is we want to actually be able to edit each one of these. So say we put one in and we spelled it wrong. So let me just, well, let's just work on the edit here. So the next thing that I'm going to do is up here above my delete, we're going to do essentially the same thing. I'm going to put edit brand, and then we're going to use our if statement, and go ahead and open that. Alright, so what I could do is here I could say if is set and not empty. Okay, and then in both of those I'm going to put $_get. This time it's going to be edit. Alright, so then we have all of that. So then I could say my edit ID equals, we'll go ahead and cast this to an integer. So int of $_get edit. Okay, and just to make use of our sanitize function, we'll say edit ID equals sanitize edit ID. Alright, now we could just for fun echo the edit ID. We'll refresh the page and then just click on Nike here, and it should say 2. Yep, so that's working. So if I click Skechers, it says 8, which is the ID of those. So that's working just fine. Let's go ahead and get rid of our echo because that's not what we really want to do. Okay. But what we do want to do is we want to grab that row out of the database so that we can make use of that later in our page. So I'm just going to say, this time I'll say SQL2 because I may want to keep some of the other SQLs. So SQL2 equals, and double quotes here, I'm going to say select all from brand where ID equals, and then in single quotes we're going to say edit ID. So that is the query that we need to grab this one that we're editing. So let's go ahead and now say edit result equals db query method SQL2. So we're just passing this into our query method of our db object and setting that equal to edit result. The last thing we need to do here is we'll say we'll call this how about eBrand, sure, eBrand is equal to my SQLi underscore fetch underscore sock, and we're going to pass that the edit result, and then we have, make sure you put my semicolon, and now we have access to eBrand, which will be an associative array of our row that we're editing, and we're getting that from here. So whatever row we have access here. Alright, we won't need to do too much more here in this little block of code because I don't want to rewrite the form and everything else. We're just going to go down and do some if statements and change some of the things in the form so that we could say, instead of add a brand, we can say edit brand. We can also change this action. So let's just jump right into that. Right here, actually, on this action, I'm going to put a PHP ternary operator in here, and what I'm going to do, let's just finish setting up this. I like to just, these things confuse me for some reason, just the syntax of them, so I just get the skeleton laid out first, and then I know as I write the longer if statement it's going to be fine. So I can put my condition in right here, and then if the condition, if it returns true, then whatever is on this side of this colon is going to be echoed to the screen. And whatever is on this side of the colon, if it returns false, will be displayed. Okay. So what I need to say is if $_get, I'm sorry, we'll do an is set. So we just want to know, is it set $_get and edit. So if it is set, what are we gonna do? Well, right here we need to print to the screen a question, or after our brands.php we need to echo a question mark edit equals, and then the ID. So I'm going to go outside of this single quote here, and I'm going to concatenate on with a period, and what I want to do is concatenate on our edit ID, and we're getting that up here, right here, so this edit ID. So let's just save that. And actually, if it returns false, I don't want to put anything to the screen. So I just have the single quotes with nothing in between, and it's just going to go back to brands.php. So let's take a look at that really quickly. So if I click edit on Skechers, you can see that up here in the URL now it has actually redirected the page, but if I view the page source right here in the form, under actions, now instead of brands.php, it has the get variable edit equals 8, okay, which is exactly what's up here. So that's important because we want that form to post back to that same exact URL when it handles the post data. Okay, so what we need to do then is, it'd be also nice, instead of this add right here, it says edit brand. So let's get rid of add a. Okay, so I got this working now, and I think it was just the positioning of the parentheses and the question marks. So take a look at this ternary operator right here. I'm checking if get $_get edit is set. If it is, it's going to say edit brand. If it's not, it's going to say add a brand. So let's go ahead and take a look at the page now. And if I just refresh the page here, it just says add a brand. If I go then and edit, that switches to edit brand. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is, in the form, I want in the submit button, what I want to do is right here, this add brand, let's go ahead and change that as well to edit. So let's just get rid of add here, and we'll do another PHP ternary right here. Okay, and this is going to be, alright, so what we're going to do is say add if it returns false, and edit if it's true. And so what we're going to check here, we need to say is set, and inside of that is set, we're going to check $_get edit. Okay, so let's take a look at the page now, refresh. Now our button says edit brand, and if we get rid of this in the URL, the button changes to add brand. Okay, so fairly easy. What we're doing is just we're changing this so that we don't have to recreate the HTML and add a whole new deal here. The other thing I'd like to do is add a cancel button, just in case you know, they go to edit and we don't want to have to make them delete the URL part or hit back. So let's just let's put an if statement here. So we'll do PHP if, skip down a few lines, and we'll say PHP end if. Alright, I actually wanted to close that PHP tag there. Alright, so in this if statement, we're going to do the same thing, just is set. I'm going to say $_get edit. Alright, so if that is true, we're going to add a whole, we're going to add a link here, and we're going to give it an href of just brands.php. So it'll take us back to brands.php, and we'll give that a class of button, and then we'll do button default. Okay, and close that link tag here, and we want it to say how about cancel. So let's just check that now. If we refresh the page, you see that we don't have an extra button, but if I click on Polo now, we have a cancel button. So now I can hit cancel and it takes us back. So now that essentially just adds a cancel button when we're editing. We don't want to edit, so boom, now we're back to our brands. All right. So all's going well. We want to do the checks now. Actually, what we want to do is print. When we hit edit, what should happen is in here it should actually say that what I'm trying to edit. So let's just go ahead and do that now. And that is in this input here. We have this value, and right here we already have a ternary set up to check for the post being set. So what I'm actually going to do is let's go ahead and do let's get rid of this ternary operator, and we're going to echo out instead. Wow. What we're going to do is echo instead we'll just make a new one called brand value. Okay, so above that brand value, we could just do an if statement if we wanted, and actually we could do, well, this is going to make our code look a little sloppy, but that's okay. I want it to be obvious, you know, where we're adding this. So let's go ahead and open up some PHP tags here. And we're just going to say if, and we'll do our, and then we'll just go ahead and close our PHP and skip down a couple lines here. So what I want to do is say if $_ how about if is set, and we'll say $_get edit. Alright, then what we want to do, if that's set, what we want to do is say brand value is equal to, and then if you remember up here in our edit we had eBrand. This right here is going to give us the associative array, so I could say right down here, so we say brand value is equal to eBrand of brand. Okay, that's our key. So that will give us what's in the database. All right. So then that's going to echo here in the value. Now, if it's not set, I want to go ahead and add an else statement here. And in this else statement, I'm going to add one more if. Okay, and this is going to be our original condition we were checking for in the ternary. So if $_post of brand, oops. Okay, if that's set, then what do I want to do? Well, then I want to set brand value equal to $_post and then brand. And let's see. What I also want to do is just go ahead and first add my semicolon so I don't forget. But let's just go ahead and sanitize that as well. Sanitize. Okay. Right. So now if I go back, look at the page, refresh, and we can see now that Polo is inserted here. Levi's, Nike, Skechers. So that's working really well. What if, well, so now if I go back to the main page, we do have undefined variable brand value. So let's figure out why that is. Okay, so that was if set. We have this, but really what needs to happen is we need to have this set up even if nothing else evaluates to true. So what we're going to do is just create that up here above our if statements. So brand value, and we'll just set that equal to an empty string. So now we won't have that undefined variable here if nothing's set. But let's just go ahead now and try to put this in so that we know we're going to get an error. Okay, but it stays because the post value happened. Okay, so then if I go to edit, we're getting that information returned to us. So that's exactly the functionality that we want. But now, the last thing we need to do is we need to change a few statements in our up here in where we're actually checking the form when it's submitted. We're going through we want to go through the same set of checks, but we're going to do a few different things here. So we don't need to do anything different here, because if it's blank, it's still going to say you must enter a brand. So let's just check that. If I go to Levi's and then I take that out of there and I hit edit brand, yep, I still get that. So that's still happening. That's perfect. That's the functionality we want. But if we look at the code, what's going to happen is if we try to hit edit brand here, it's going to say that Levi's already exists in the database. See? And we need to do a check that says, first of all, it does exist, but we're trying to edit the same thing, and we want it to say, okay, let me just back up a minute. If I try to put in Nike, if I try to change this one to Nike, I do want to check and say, hey, that already exists in the database, which will happen. But if someone just leaves the same exact thing, it shouldn't throw an error that it already exists, because it is that one. So we just need to do a simple check right here. If it already exists in the database, we just need to add an if statement here. And we're just going to say if is set $_get edit. And we're going to redefine that SQL right there. So what we're going to do is it's going to use this SQL unless the edit is set, unless we're editing something on the page, and then we're going to do a slightly different SQL statement. So we're going to do then is say select all from brand where brand equals, now notice I'm not really changing anything here, where brand equals brand, okay, but we also want to add one more, and ID does not equal edit ID. And we got the edit ID coming in right here at the top of the page. So what we're doing is we want to, let's see, I passed it up. We want to select all from brands where brand equals the brand name that we're doing, and it does not equal this. So it's checking for this exact situation we were going for, is that if we're trying to change it to something that already exists in the database, but it's not the same ID, it'll give us that error. But if it's the same ID, it'll just go ahead and go through. So there won't be any confusion there. Just one little extra check for us to do here in the code. Really, there's only one more thing for us to change, and this works. But so now, well, we better just go ahead and finish it. So that's all we want to do as far as checking in our edits here. But we need to change one more statement here, and this statement is if we're adding the brand to the database. Okay, well, if we're initially adding it, we want to run this query statement. However, if we're editing it, it's going to look a lot different. We're going to update the database instead of inserting into the database. So we have to do the same exact thing here. All we have to do is add an if statement, and we're going to say if is set $_get edit. If that's set, we need our SQL to look differently, right? So SQL is going to equal, let's go ahead and close that. So we're just going to override this SQL statement. So instead of saying insert into brand, we're going to say update. So that's going to look like this: update brand. So that's the table we're going to update. Update brand, and then we say set, and then all we need to do is update our actual brand. So we're going to say set brand, which is going to be the field, equal to brand, and that needs to be in single quotes. Alright, and then we have to give it a condition where ID is equal to our edit ID. So we're only updating because if we look, we have a very simple table. I mean, we only have the brand. That's the only thing that can be update. So our update statement looks very easy. It's just update brand equal to the posted brand, and from the form data where the ID is equal to the edit ID. Okay, so that's it. If I save that now, we go back to the front end of the page, or this is actually the back end of the website, but let's just go ahead and edit Polo. And first of all, hit edit brand. It just edits, but it's the same exact thing. But if I try to change that to, let's try to change Polo to Levi's, which already exists, it should give us an error. Okay, it says, hey, that already exists, please choose another name. So let's just put an S there and misspell it, hit edit brand. And now we can see that that has been updated. There's no longer a Polo, but there's a Polos with an S. And if I go back now and look in the database, refresh, you can see that that is indeed updated. So let's just fix that really quick because we don't want to misspell it. So I hit edit, and now I can go and delete that S, hit edit brand, and it's updated. So now we can delete these, we can add new ones. So let's just say new one. So there it is. We can edit that and say, I don't know, new 2, and it changes it keeps the same ID and everything, but just changes it, and I can delete it out of the database. So now our brands is completely set up and running. That's all we're going to do to that page. It's very simple, but now we have the ability to add and edit brands, and then now when we go to our products, we will be able to select from these brands that we add in this table. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to add our categories, so that in the front end of the site, let's just go back there real quick, you see these top level menu items and then their sub menus. We're going to be able to add and edit those in the next video. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please comment, like, and subscribe. I am sorry that I'm a little under the weather and my voice is kind of crazy, but anyways,